Hey, everybody, welcome to the stream. Sorry, got distracted reading some GitHub issues for ngMox. Um, but let's get started. Transition over. All right. For those of you who might be having a break, I hope you're having a good break. I missed Thursday's stream. You may be able to hear it. I'm still recovering a bit from a cold. Hey, Michael, good to see you, man. I'm getting over that. Last night, my daughter is running 104-degree fever. So um, we were at the pharmacy pretty late getting some antibiotics for her. But things seem to be going better. Anyway, uh, getting into it. Any New Year's coming up soon. So I'll be streaming tomorrow, the 30th. Yeah, 100 plus. Yeah, it's rough. One of the things that's scary about her is that when she was younger, she had febrile seizures. Um, if you guys don't know what that is, basically, um, a high fever can cause seizures in children. And so we watch her fevers very, very closely. It was probably one of the scariest things I've ever seen. And my wife was struggling with it. I was struggling with it, but I couldn't show that I was struggling with it because I needed to be strong for my wife. But the first time it happened, I was holding her in my arms, trying to decide what to do, and she just had a seizure and went limp in my arms, and it was the scariest thing ever. So we're always very, very nervous when my youngest has high fevers. She hasn't had a had a seizure yet, but that memory's still there. And so we worry about her. So we're watching her really, really close. Yeah, it's a little bit scary, and it's my wife texting me. So it looks like she just woke up and is giving me an update on my daughter, and things look like they're okay. Anyway, um, yeah, she's in good hands. She is. My wife's a great person, and she's very good at taking care of our daughters. So, um, anyway, Tuesday's the 31st, so I will be streaming again tomorrow evening at 5:30. And it'll be the last time I stream on a Monday. Well, we'll see. That Monday and Tuesday will float around. I figure I'll be back to Tuesdays after next week. But yeah, looking forward to the new year. Looking forward to stuff that I've got going on. So I can't wait to share some information with you guys. But um, still need to play a couple of things close to the chest until things are in place. Anyway, looking at the tests, we have one test that's failing, and you guys may have seen me looking into this before the stream. But one of our tests is saying, hey, this is being put in the declarations array, but it's a standalone component and shouldn't be put in a declarations array. It looks like the issue is with ngMox. And what we can do is we can go to the grid component. And until this is, until ngMox is updated, what we can do is we can add our standalone back, and I think it fixes this issue. So standalone true, which we typically don't need, but because we're mocking this component using ngMox, we need to do it here. The other thing I want to try is to use the mock builder. We'll import that. And I want to build the grid component here. And then it has a dot build function. And I'm curious if this works. I was reading about this a little bit before too, and ngMox says to use the mock builder. Standalone default removal has kind of been an issue all over. Yeah, VSC workspaces are a mess when you go into a pre-19 project and back into it, I'll bet. Yeah, it has been a little bit crazy. Unexpected value imported by module dynamic testing module. So I was looking into this just before. Let's go forward here. So mock builder. So mock component here has support for standalone components. Mock builder also supports standalone components and allows to mock their imports only for shallow rendering. I'm curious about mock builder component directive. See, ngMox relies a lot on modules for the builder. Standalone. Shallow flag. Oh, that's really cool. So I think instead of doing this, we do mock builder dot mock grid component. And I think that will work. I'm just trying to update my knowledge. There we go. Oh, never mind. I was like, oh yeah, it worked. No, all the cache stuff worked. Come on. Add ng module notation. I don't know. We're just gonna go with mock component here for now. I don't want to keep struggling with this, and I'll have to figure out mock builder on my own. Or maybe we'll look into it in another stream. Let's try again. App component found in the declarations array of the testbed.configure testing module call. No, I did not. So create component factory comes from ngMox. And I do want to get this stuff all figured out. But let's see. They're not ngMox It comes from ngneat spectator. So ngneat spectator, here we go. And there was just a release. I want to take a look at today's release. We don't have anything listed. So let's look at the change log for 19.3. Unit test runner for vtest. That's cool. Supports vtest mocking. That's really cool. A min version of 18. Curious about Angular 19. No standalone component fails. Unable to override directive for standalone component. Zoneless compatible. Let's go take a look at the docs for this. I wonder if there's a way for me to tell it that it is a standalone. Testing components. So you use this create component factory. Providers, declarations, entry, override modules, override components. Mocks, component mocks. Declare component. I wonder if declare component is what I'm looking for. So testing components. Testing. Events, keyboard, queries. I want to see. What I want to see is what this declare component does. Standalone true. So they're marking their stuff with standalone true. This might be another Angular 19 change that they need to catch up to. The events API, event creators, keyboard helpers. Parent selector, mocking components. Curious, if I go back to app component and we just add standalone true, and then I run my tests again, I think everything should work. There must be some different handling based on that flag. Yeah. So for the time being, Standalone true seems to fix the various testing libraries. Well, not the various. So Spectator and ngMox seem to be fixed by adding the standalone true back. I mean, it probably takes a bit of work to change what they were doing based on that flag. I don't know. It's open source, so definitely not going to complain about people providing things to me for free. And this fix, I mean, it's not ideal, but it doesn't suck too much. And the other, the other thing is like, this test really isn't that useful. So I could argue that we just get rid of this test, but for now, I'm not getting rid of any tests. However, we do have all of our unit tests passing. So let's go ahead and check that in. There's that change, that change. So, fixed standalone issues with testing libs. We'll commit that and push it. So our tests are passing. However, we do have an issue with our solver that we were running into last time. And I'm curious if our component tests will bear that out. So we haven't worked through our component tests yet. The other thing I really want to take a look at is upgrading to ESLint 9. I want to take a look at that too. But let's get our grid working. I also want to get into how we can test a lot of the changes we made to stores. So nx run many, and our target this time is going to be the component tests. And let's see how our component tests do. We haven't run these since we moved over, and I'm very curious. There's probably a bunch of cleanup we need to do here, but we do have some component tests that we can take a look at. I also think and see how to fix those. Fix the issue using unit tests. So maybe the first place we get into is the solver itself, so that we can test the walk back issue. It actually did better than I thought it would. So our grid failed. And it failed because we don't have cell value changed. So we've got 3 failing tests. So let's go ahead and run these. Let's add the watch flag to it. So with the watch flag, we can get the Cypress test runner to come up in a GUI mode. Okay, so we're getting a small warning here that, hey, they expect version 18, but we're on 19. Let's start our component testing. I like to use Chrome typically. And it said that our grid component is the one that has the issues. So we'll go ahead and pull this up, and we can see right away So the cell highlighting test actually worked great. And we can see that it's checking everything out. I love that we can see, all of the state at that point in time. So the keyboard navigation, we can see that, hey, we got here, they entered the up arrow and we moved up, and we expect, everything to work as it should. So then we wrote these tests a little while ago, but here we don't get very far because our grid component.cy.ts on line 143, we've got something that it can't run. Let's go ahead and close all tabs. Let's pull open our grid.component.cy.ts. There we go. It says line 143 is our issue. So create column puzzle cells. So we take a grid store, and we do that, and then set cell value, value row and column. So set cell value takes expected 2 arguments, but got 1. I believe set cell value. If we go take a look at it, that's not the one. Let's pull open our grid store. And I believe it's in our with grid. So we've got set grid values, which we pass in some cell values, or value row index. Maybe we use set grid values instead of set cell value because it's doing the same thing. Let's go back to 143. So if I change this, instead of column cell, if we change this instead to be or changes instead to be here in our grid store, our with grid, our grid features, set grid values expects an array of cell values. So if instead we do cell value array here, and here we change this, then we can just do grid store dot set grid values. And then we can do changes. And changes doesn't work. Oh, that doesn't work. But we should be able to just do change. And for each change, we're just not using it, right? So we can say set cell value change here. Right, does that not work? I think it's value and then change. And that means we need to pass in our value, which is a, let's go take a look at cell value really quick. So value is a cell value. So we don't want cell values there. We want cell state. I think we want this to be cell state. Then we can bring this in. And then our value is a cell value. So the value we want to change it to. And then we don't need this type anymore because we're not using it. But I also think we can get away with doing this instead. We could just pass in the new value to the change. But now we've got a broken test here because our grid store doesn't know what this is supposed to be. So we need to take this array and change it into some cell values. So what we can do is we can just say, hey, create a cell or cell state, right? And then we need to take this create cell state and add it. Where did that come from? It imported it. I don't want it to be imported. Row column region. Actually, that's probably good. So create cell state. We'll call this create cell states. And come on. We're going to create this function, create cell states. We'll create it at the top level. Our param is changes, we'll call it, and returns a cell state array. Great. So now we can go to the bottom here And we can add our create this back. And so create cell states is going to take in changes, and it's going to be a row, which is a number, and a value, which is a number, I believe. So we've got our changes. Let me go make sure. So 3 and 1, 2 and 1, 1 and 3. Yeah. So the first one is the row. The second one is the column. And in tuple notation, we can say, so changes is now a tuple that has row and value. So we can destructure it to row and value. So we take that in. The other thing we need is the column. And we're just going to default that to 4 like it was before. And then what we can do is we can say, hey, return changes.map. And this is where we're going to create cell state. And create cell state takes a couple of items. So it takes row, column, region, value, and if it's valid, is read only. And I believe we only had to pass the ones that we care about. So we're going to destructure this a little bit. So we can say, hey, give me my row and my value. And we are going to call create cell state. And inside of this, we're going to give it row, value, and then here we want column. And I believe that works. Yes, it does. Value does not work. Oh, value is not that. It is a cell value. So we need to import cell value. So now it is complaining. So we need the region. So row number, value this, column this, and we need row, column, and region for this to work. So let's see, we want region here. And we'll just say it's 0 for now. And so that's going to work. One thing I want to do is I want to refactor this so that let's change the signature and it's not how I want to do it. Can I do it here? Introduce constant, introduce field. Because what I want to do is instead make this an object. So we can do type cell state params equals, and here we want changes to be required. So that's going to be this. We want column to be a number, and we want region to be a number. And so now we can say that our parameters are well, our parameters are change it, or cell state changes. Now we can call it changes. And this will be of type cell state params. We can say it equals this value, and the only thing we need to do now is make that an empty array and make those colons. So this changes array here, we'll just call this row and value, row and values, rows and values. So we've got that, and then we can do changes dot rows and values dot map, and we've got our row and value. And then here we can do, this isn't going to work. I need to make this optional and this optional. And then we can say, hey, const the default row or default column is 4, and const default region equals 0. And so now we can take out these default params here. I keep muting my volume. That's hilarious. I was trying to hit the delete key and kept hitting mute. Anyway, so now we've got this, but now we just need to do const region can I destructure with the default value? So region or instead of trying to fumble my way through it, let's see if I can even do it, right? So let's see, ES destructure with default value. Destructuring with default value, yes. So MDN says, with our destructuring assignment, Oh, that's fascinating. I never thought about this, but it's crazy that you could pull pop and push off of your array. That's very crazy. Um, and so this is renaming assignment, which, oh, there we go. So you can do it with objects. Oh, and I do have an object. So I can say region equals default region, column equals default column. And I can set this equal to changes. And I could even just pull out I could even pull out rows and values here. I'm going to be destructuring anyway, may as well. And do that. Boom. So now I've got my create cell states that I can use up above in my functions to actually create cell states. So here I can just do create cell states. Oh, wait. Create cell states of create cell states. That doesn't work. Oh no. It froze for a bit. Oh, create cell states has wrong parameters. So it is cell state. It's an array of cell state params. Boom. No, that. Oh, I need to be passing in an object. That's what's going on here. Actually, if I do function create cell states, and here I do changes as cell value. Let's do this. Let's create a type here. So type, we'll call this row and value equals row is a number, value is a cell value. Boom. So here, now we can just call this a row and value array. And here our changes can be a row and value array. And this will return a cell state array. Boom. And inside of here, we can just call create cell state. Yeah, duplicate I can't create overrides this way. But I could do create cell state partial, and that can return this. So we can return function that, which in turn return create cell state. And we can do changes dot map. Create, and here we can say, hey, this is our change, and changes dot map. So we're gonna map our change over to create cell states. And we're just going to give it our row and values, which is our change. So my return it needs to be create cell states here, and we're just going to map this to that. And I believe so we take our changes, arguments of type row and values number. Property rows and values is missing in type rows and value number. Oh, there we go. The changes needs to be an array of row and values. So row and values, row value is not assignable to type cell states params. Oh, I don't need my map here. I can just do, my map isn't doing me any good. So really, I just want to do rows and values. And really, I could just rename this rows and values. Boom. So now I've got a partial that I can use. I don't even need my partial anymore. I could really just do this. Create cell states from rows and values. And I want to name this well so that it, don't need that. So now I can go up to where I've got issues and create, and I can actually just do from rows and values here. Boom. And I can also do it here. Create puzzle column cells. So here, I just need to wrap this and do create from rows and values. And I've got one more where I just need to do a create from rows and values. And that should fix up our tests. So now we've got some failing tests, but we're in a better place. So here it creates the column. We've got a 1 in column 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and row 4. So we get column 4, row 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. We click on it. And then we get the highlighting. It is focused. We grab the input. We enter an up arrow. And when we hit the up arrow, it's actually going to this cell. And so yeah. And so it's going to the wrong cell, right? So another one, we've got 2 items. We hit the up arrow, and it's going only up 1. And I think this one is testing, yeah, that it doesn't move at all. And it is moving. So we've got some issues with our navigation. Let's see if we can fix those. Let's start with this one. So we type the up arrow, and it should recognize that it can't focus here and set the next to focus to the one above it. So let's go take a look at our grid navigation and see what's going on there. And let's see if we can fix these using our component tests. So our with keyboard navigation, right? So update next to focus, past state, navigate to cell. So let's just do this, right? Let's console.log. navigating. And here we just want to say let's log everything. So and let's use console.table, right? So here we can say that we want direction, cell state, and creating puzzle mode. And it doesn't like direction. Why doesn't it like direction? Doesn't like it because I'm using console.table wrong. So it's tabular data and then the properties to use. Okay. And this should produce a table for us in our Cypress tests. So if we hit F12 and we bring up our console over here, so we're not in creating puzzle mode. Our direction is up. Our region is 4. Our row is 4. Valid is true. So we're in row and column 4, and we said we're going up. And then we're handling the keyboard event. Column 4, row 0. This is not the same. So column 4, row 0. So this is handling different one. And I believe this is the one we want here. So we are getting that. I'm curious why my console.table isn't working. Let's do a quick search here. Console.table. So this is what we should be seeing. First name and last name stuff. Hey, Marcus, happy holidays, man. Hope you've been having a great holiday break, and hopefully you have a great new year. I don't know. I'm not too worried about this. We can see it here. It's just interesting that the console.table isn't working. But we can see in our code. Why are you open? So we want to update selected from navigation. So let's go take a look at this one. And of course that doesn't work. Update selected from navigation. So we know our creating puzzle mode is false. So is our creating puzzle mode false? Let's just make sure, right? Console.log update from nav. And here we're just going to go with our direction, cell state, and creating puzzle mode. Boom. So if we go back to our test, right, and let's clear this. Oh, hey, there's my table. So updating from nav up, column 4, region, row 0, column 4. That's not us. This is the one I think we want here. 4, 4. Update from nav up. And the order we went was cell state and then no, it was direction, cell state, and then creating puzzle mode. We've got, that's direction up. That's the cell state. And then creating puzzle mode is false. So set row pencil marks to 1 and then 2. Oh. This one shouldn't move at all. Let's clear this and this test. Can I rerun just this test? That's all tests. I want to just rerun this test. But I guess we'll rerun them all. Hey, I'm glad. You can add dot only, I think, to run just one. Yeah, I don't want to modify the test. I'd like to, and maybe I should, but let's take a look at this one, right? So if I click here, I can't do this. I've got to. How do I go back to the full console? Cancel that. I know there's a way to view the full console. I think. No, test code need, okay, that makes sense. So let's add the dot only just to, it should move focus to the next cell above. Top of grid, it should skip over read only cells in puzzle mode. This should say it should skip over read-only cells when not in puzzle mode. And it should skip over a single cell. So I should be able to just do it.only, right? And now if I go back to Cypress, it should only run that test. Yes. And so now we're failing. So row, column, and region 4. And that I wish there was a way to get back to everything, but I guess once I start digging in, it's going to. Looking into this, I wish my SciComps EDEs looked cool and we're not just pressing buttons or typing in forms. Well, most of them, that's the way they are, right? Like a lot of my other tests are just pressing a button. So as I'm debugging this, we can see that we're hitting up, and here it's up, and then we know that this is false. So since we know that this is false, it's find next cell to focus. So here, let's just make sure console.log find next cell to focus. Boom, and we can actually just do args here. Arguments. Oh, it doesn't like that. Why doesn't it like that? Oh, I can't grab the arguments. I can, but direction and cell state. Well, really, we only care about the direction. So here, let's just console.log next cell, give it next cell. And actually, instead of putting that here, we'll put it in get next cell. So partial get next cell state. So get next cell state. So for right now, we'll just do const next cell state equals that. Then we can console.log next cell state. Actually, we'll just this in here. Boom, next cell state here. And then we're going to return next cell state. So there we go. So now if we go take a look, so our next cell up, oh, is read only is marked as false. Oh, we can even see that here. So it's our creating puzzle mode. When we're creating these cells in puzzle mode, it's not marking them as read only. Interesting. Let's go fix that issue. So in our grid store with puzzle mode, so we just set creating puzzle mode here. That means in our with grid, these methods have to exist outside of the grid. They do. And this will be an interesting test. So we actually need a new feature. So we need a new TypeScript file. And this is going to be, what do we want to call this? Like grid, set grid values.feature.ts. And then we want to export function with set grid values. And here we are going to return signal store feature. And this is an interesting so we want so like if we look at keyboard navigation, right? So our state, it has a grid state, but and I need my type on this. Type that, and that, and then we can import this. Right, and so here we can do grid state and this is where it gets interesting. Well, wait, doesn't our grid state so with puzzle mode, Oh, we've already got that on the state. See, I thought puzzle mode was added here. We're okay. Um, yeah, we can get rid of this. So our with grid. Hello? So inside of here, the problem is the set grid values is missing one thing. And it's is read only is state dot creating puzzle mode. And is read only is state dot creating puzzle mode. And that should do it. That should fix our bug. The red and green parts are quite Christmassy. There we go. So that did fix our bug. It was because we weren't marking our state as our cell as read only. So we missed a piece, and that's why these tests are so useful. Is they're giving us the ability to figure out, what happens when we run into an issue. So let's go remove our only from our tests. The main reason that I'm not a big fan of being forced to do this is that sometimes people forget that they need to remove this and then they check that in. And so then you have to start watching, for focuses in your tests and things like that. Wait, why didn't it? I removed my only. Let's go back out. And let's jump back into the grid component and see if I just needed to do that. Yeah. No. It's not picking up my changes. I wonder why it's not recognizing that I've changed this file. I don't have any onlys left. This is my default comment when I have to add a comment and I don't want to, but I'm just trying to get it to recognize that I update. Curious, if I load like pencil marks and then I come back to grid, yeah, it is a little bit opinionated and it's fine. I mean, I say I'm not a fan, but Cypress does a lot of good things. Wait, what is going on here? Why is it? So it's not even running the right test. It's only running one test, but it's not even the right one. That's hilarious. I think what I'm going to have to do is let's go back to Cypress. And let's close my tests here. We'll try running. Maybe the electron experience is a little bit more integrated. Oh, it was running them all, maybe? Maybe there were... No, it wasn't doing this, but all of our tests are passing now, so our navigation tests are passing. So we fixed another bug. So that's good. And I've got a lot of console.logs in here. This is where I like graphical representations of my change. Because I can come in here and I can be like, okay, this is good. That's good. That's good. Those are good. So I don't have any console logs in here. So now if I go back to my grid feature, I only have those two changes. So really it was my navigation. And let's get out of here. Yeah, I should be able to just revert this file and we're good. So if I discard all these changes, we're good here. And then I can stage these two changes. I can say that I fixed navigation issues with puzzle mode. And commit that and push it. And so now we're in a decent state. I like that one. Unclog is a good one. I like to say, so like in a lot of testing frameworks, to focus, you do like fit or fdescribe or something like that. I like to ask people to, I like to tell people that they've effed up my tests and things like that. I like unclog, unclog. That's a good one. Yeah, and that's another interesting thing, right? Is if you're going to force me to make only work, then when I add it and remove it, it should do better. Yeah, effed up the tests, man. You effed up my tests. And that grabs attention quickly, right? So, anyways, let's see. So we've got our navigation stuff fixed. The next one that I want to fix, what do I want to do? I'll cut a half hour. Let's fix what I want to. So if I do pnpm exec nxserve, right? Let's see if we can get this to happen. But when we're solving the cell, it's not walking backwards. Hey, DCMYDC, thank you for the subscription or for the follow. Really appreciate it. Hope you're having happy holidays. Welcome. Come on in, ask questions. But anyway, we're going to take a look here, and I think I've got it pulled up. And one thing I need to do. You know what? For right now, it's not too bad. We'll leave it in dark mode for now. And one of the other things I want to do before, and maybe we can do it as part of the xState, is I want to create like a true dark mode, right? the other thing I want to do is give people the ability to create their own themes. And for right now, we'll use like localhost or something, or I don't know. Maybe we'll use the I don't know, like the DB, right? If we inspect this page, and we look at storage, right? We could look at like maybe an index DB to store our themes instead of just local storage. That's probably a better way to go. Yeah, maybe that is. But yeah, I do want to get like a dark mode, especially with streaming. Like streaming bright white is often not ideal, and so it would be good if if we could make our stuff look good. Um, and that's a lot of goods, right? It would be good if we could make our stuff look good. It's almost tautological. But anyway, the problem we've got, right? We've got this problem grid. And if we solve one cell, it made it past it. So we'll reset and add the problem grid. And we'll solve one cell again. And so here we are. We're in this state, right, where it chose wrong. But because it chose wrong, there's nothing it can put here. Like this should be an 8 if this row were to be solved, but it can't be an 8 because of this 8. So we're in a bad state, right? If we oh. Well, it's even easier than that. So if I hit undo, it doesn't undo. That's our problem. So our undo is broken. Why is our undo broken? Let's go take a look at our console. Let's clear our console. Let's reset and we'll get back to. So we'll hit solve one cell a few times and we'll hit undo. And undo is not doing anything. Good. We've got a place to look. So we can get rid of that. We can get rid of that. And our undo and redo are here. So let's take a look at our undo and redo, right? With computed, with methods, clear old commands, with methods undo, with methods redo. So let's just here console.log this, right? Or maybe, well, for now, let's just undo. And like, it's weird that I'm in GitHub and my Copilot isn't doing anything, and I'm not sure why. Oh, I know why. I have the completions disabled. I disabled the completions for something I was working on. And I forgot to turn them back on. So anyway, so we can look at last command run index, command stack, and our last command run index. Boom. And I think if I look at these, are these signals? They are. So I want to see what is last command run is a number. Okay. So let's go ahead and just see what we log when we do an undo. So we'll solve a couple cells and I'll hit undo. So -1, it's an empty array, and -1. So the last command run index is -1. So that's why our undo isn't working. So let's fix that. So the problem is in our solver. So in our solver, so our update cell value. Our update cell value comes from withgrid. So we're actually calling update cell value. Let's go to our with solver. So we're calling update cell value. I don't think we want that. I think we want set cell value. And I don't think set cell value is read only on it, does it? I look at set cell value, new value, and the cell state. So this is what we want. So here, set cell value, we want to replace this with this. So here, we want to fix this one. And instead of this, now we can just say, hey, we want next value in our cell state. And here we also want value in our cell state. Value and next cell to solve. And this needs to be set cell state. Set cell value. So there we go. We've now got that in place. But the problem is we aren't updating the command stack. The set cell value, we set this, but the undo redo is what adds the command stack in. We probably want to change this over to being set cell value also. So our command is a grid command. And our grid command is the previous value, the current value, and the invalid values, which is an array of cell values. And it's also got the grid value changed options, which has value, row, and column. So this one we probably want to leave as update cell value for now. But so one thing I was thinking about doing is, updating the state, but we can't really do that. Because this is in a different feature, and it includes its own initial command stack. So what we probably need to do is add with hooks. And we can add in our state here. And our state, we want what are our commands that we can access here? On init or on destroy? I'm curious if we could add I'm very curious if we could add our own values in here. But we've got a couple of places where we're watching grid, like cell changes. So here's one of them, right? And basically what we did is we went in and we set this value changes, and we're watching for the last cell updated. Um, and I think we have to do the same thing here. So I think we can just come in here and we can just say, hey, you know, undo, redo, watch cell value changes. Yeah. And then here we can just say state dot undo, redo, watch cell value changes. And actually, if we go take a look at the errors, it's an RX method, right? So we want the same thing. We want to, because we want to watch when that changes, when that emits. So we definitely need an RX method here. So let's get that in place, and that would be an RX method. And it's not a void. We want the row and the column number so we can pull it out of the grid. So Zuvis T, best view. Oh, let's see. I gotta go over here. And you get timed out. And I guess I set it so that it doesn't delete messages. I should have deleted the message first, but anyway. So we've got an RX method here. And it is going to take in a row, which is a number, and a column that's a number. And boom. So here we can just pull in pipe. And we want to pipe this. So if you look, we're piping into a tap. And then we're doing some stuff, right? We want to do the same thing here. And here we can just do state dot last cell updated. And I think I have to add this to the props, right? Yeah. So we'll go ahead and add that also to our props. So there we go. So now we've got our last cell updated. So now we can watch it, right? And we're going to go straight into a tap. And here, we're going to want to grab a couple of things. We want to grab the row and then the column. And then we're going to use that to set up our command. So we've got our row and our column, and I don't think I want that. That's making a mess. So now we need to figure out, you know, the cell and what's changed, right? And to do that, So we want to push some stuff onto the command stack. So we're going to have to do that, right? But first we want to get our change. So we want to say const, and here we want to get the changed cell is that. And we want to do that also, which means we need our grid, which means up here, we also need a state that's a grid state. So there we go. Now we've got our grid state, and now we've got our changed cell. So now we want to update our commands. And so, man, when we're doing this, clear old commands, but set command stack is what we were using. And we want to use a grid command. So we want to say state dot set command stack. And here we want to spread the state dot command stack. And we can add new command here. So we need to create our new command, const new command, grid command equals that. So it's the row in the column, the value is change cell dot value. Oh. So we need a previous value from our cell value changes. Oh, and the other thing I need here is our state and that. And it doesn't like this. Oh, we don't need the state here. We're not doing a patch state. So we need the previous value from our undo, from our last cell updated. So here, in our with grid, our last cell updated so we need to add something here. We just need to say const previous value equals state.grid. And here we can say previous value. And we want to go up here. And we want to say previous value is a cell value. And here we can say previous value and last cell updated cell value. And we can also just say, hey, this is the row, this is the column, and this is the previous value. Boom. So there we go. We've got an error here. So this can also be undefined. And this can also be undefined. Whoops. So there we go. And then our undo redo feature can now grab the previous value. And we need to say that this also has previous value that is a cell value or undefined. And then we can just say, hey, we've got a previous value here. Boom. I think we've got some more issues here, but let's see what happens, right? So now if we go back to our grid, oh yeah, we have an issue. What is this issue? Grid store on line 1325. Grid store on line 13. Oh. Is not assignable to type observer number. So with grid, oh, type subject number is not assignable to this. The type subject number is not assignable to row number, column number, previous. Oh. There we go. But my grid store is still broken because it's now saying this is not assignable to number. And the reason for that is anywhere we use last cell updated needs to be changed. Last cell updated. That's the grid store. This is pencil marks. So here, this needs to be cell value or undefined. And I think I need to figure out a better way to do this. Because this isn't easily sustainable. Cannot find name cell value. Game 1 feature TS 1951. How did I break that? Line 51. Cell value. Did it not import it? There we go. So it probably didn't import it into all of those, right? Game 1. Um, and I'm going to have this all over the place, right? Because now I'm in the grid errors. Let's figure something better out so that I change it once. So if I look at these all depend on, oh no, we're pulling that from grid state. So if I move this type into the grid state, love how you changes options. Not the same thing. Almost. I don't know why this is an interface. I don't think I'm overriding it, so I'm going to change it to a type. see if I pay the price for that. So this is coming from here. Last cell updated. What do we want to do? Last cell updated values. Last cell updated. We can call it values for now. Equals that. So now what I should be able to do is just say, hey, this is last cell updated values, and import that. And is there any place else I'm using that? Set cell value. So update cell value is where we're using this. Yeah. And then we call it updated. Cell updated is what calls next. So I think we're good here. So yeah, now all I want to do is just look for every instance of last cell updated, and instead of doing this, we can change this to be our last cell updated values. And that should fix some things here, but we can also change this to be our last cell updated values. And so now we're only updating one place, and everything should update in the future. So our grid state, our solver, we're also using, no, not our solver, our grid feature, no, our undo redo. We can also say last cell updated values, and on my RX method, you can also say that. That's going to cut down on that quite a bit. And let me see. If TSC still passes, I will change types and interfaces, and sometimes even classes, if it isn't that much in use. Yeah. I use types. So the difference between type and interface, like the main difference, right, in TypeScript, is that interface can be extended, type cannot. So if I have something that I want to allow extension, then I'll set interface. If I haven't thought about allowing extension, or I'm just creating something, it's type. I set it as a type until I need an interface. Until I need to extend it, I leave it as a type. There used to be a benefit to it, and in older versions of TypeScript, there still is, where types were actually faster than interfaces because it didn't have to look for the extensions. But I think that benefit has mostly disappeared. I'm fairly certain that I read that somewhere recently. Oh, interesting. Yeah, it still isn't intuitive yet. And sometimes, yeah, you could do the type with the ampersand. That would work just fine. So yeah, it really, I guess it comes down to a lot to preference. I know like a lot of .NET developers tend to like to use interface, and then they tend to like to put something in front of their interfaces. And so you'll see that in a lot of code where people, who are full stack developers coming from a .NET backend will have like interface, and instead of this being, interface last cell updated values, it would be interface I last cell, right? So they tend to use the Hungarian notation for it, right? I've mostly done away with Hungarian notation, except when I write .NET, and only in the case where it's custom. Yeah, ampersand, exactly, Michael. It gets a little bit crazy. And the other thing about interface is it could potentially be extended. So, like I can extend the window interface here in this class. And once that's encountered, everywhere in my program now sees the changes that I've made to the window interface, right? And that can be a big problem too. If you want to localize extensions and things like that, right? Well, let's show you what I'm talking about. I want to get this finished up because I need to end soon, but let's go to TypeScript lang, right? I may have that up somewhere, but I don't know. Let's go to the playground, right? And so, type closed type equals, prop 1 is a number, prop 2 is a string, right? And then interface extendable type equals, and here we can do prop 1 is a number, right? And then we could have, this could be in another file or way later in the code in same file, right? You could have interface extendable type, and now I can go prop 2 string, right? And then here we can do, const test1 of type close type equals, prop 1, prop 2 test, right? But I can also do const test2, right? And that is an extendable type equals, and I can also say prop 1 is a 1 and prop 2 is test, right? And you're like, okay, whatever, right? You extended the type, that's fine. But here's where it gets really weird, is up here I can go const test3 equals, and now I can say, hey, prop 1 is 1 and prop 2 is test, right? And so even though I extended the interface, maybe way further down, right? Prop 2, extend that thing, exactly. It gets crazy, right? And the nice thing about types with closed types, right, is I can't go type closed type equals prop 3, right, is a Boolean, right? It doesn't like that, right? It's saying, hey, you already declared closed type, you can't do this again, right? So if I use types, I have to do like what Michael is saying, and I can do, hey, this is closed type, and it's a Boolean, right? But this doesn't affect this closed type the same way that extendable type would, right? Like you can declare extendable type over and over again, And this can lead to some weird issues, again, with name collisions, right? It's kind of the issue that you run into with global variables, where you may declare an interface, right, for use with something, and then again declare it in another file for use with that other thing, and those two will merge together, and you'll have multiple props. Worse, let's say down here in the second one, I say, you know what, prop 1 is actually a string. I guess it's going to stop that, right? So it will stop that, but if these were in two separate files, it's possible that I could redeclare things, and then who knows what the type compiler is going to see and things like that. That's why I tend to avoid interface unless I explicitly want this behavior where somebody could extend interface, right? And why would I want to do that? Well, what if I want to have something like window, right? And on the window object, I want, my global Boolean, right? So now I've added to the window object my global variable, and so now anywhere, I can do, console log test and my window my global, right? And it's not going to complain, right? And that's how you can add stuff to your global window interface or things like that. Is they're using this interface merging, right? And you can declare these interfaces anywhere, and they'll allow them to merge. But there are potential downsides to it, right? You don't know who's extending you when, and so I tend to want my I tend to feel like my software should be more predictable, right? And so I tend to prefer types over interfaces for this exact reason. But this is a good use case for things like window, right? Where you can just add something to an interface if you need it, right? And it doesn't matter that my global is added everywhere, because when you add it, you don't care if anybody else. Yeah, exactly, right? Anybody could throw anything on window. I just showed you guys how to hack your Angular applications and add global variables in. Thank you. No, I agree with you, Michael. This can lead to it can lead to some weird stuff, especially like, what if you did observable, string here, right? Well, guess what? If you're not careful with this, you've now just introduced a memory leak into your program, right? Because this observable is never going to be cleaned up. And if that observable is part of a larger object that needs that observable to be cleaned up before it can be garbage collected, now that larger object can't be garbage collected. And then if that larger object has other objects that need it, you're right, like you could leak so much memory by accidentally throwing, right? And well, not accidentally, but by putting a global on the window interface, you can create memory leaks that will, they're beautiful, right? So definitely be careful of, interfaces and things like that. Especially if you wind up extending another interface, like window is an obvious one. But say you extend an interface that's long-lived, and you put an observable on that. Now it's unpredictable when your garbage collection happens. Exactly, just beautiful leaks. Like, these are the kind of leaks that, man, you spend days debugging to figure out how you're leaking memory, because you have no idea, because there's no errors in the code. And oh man, just tracing these things down is it is the gift that keeps on giving. So be like, I'm very intentional about picking type over interface, And the exact reason is this one. If I don't want this use case to happen, then it's always type. If I explicitly want this use case to happen, then I choose interface, right? But it's really rare that I want this use case to happen. So like I would say 99% of my types are declared with type because I don't want the interface extension, right? I don't want interface merging. I don't want anything like that to happen, right? Like most people when they think extends, right? They're like, you know, interface extendable to extends extendable type, right? And then you can add prop 3, that's your Boolean, right? And this doesn't affect up here, right? This is still a number. Like ext2 is, you know, it extends this. So ext2 has all the properties of extendable, but, right, like, what if I do const, you know, ext2 is type ext2 equals this, and you know I've got I think the dark mode is messing with my cursor. It's difficult to see it, but you know we've got prop 1 here, 1, prop 2 here, test, and prop 3 that is, you know, false for whatever reason. But guess what? Down here, you know, in another file or later in the same file, right? I declare, you know, interface extendable, right? And I add prop 4 that is a number array, right? Suddenly ext2 is broken, right? Even though I declared it in the same file, right? Like maybe I wanted to keep these together, but I've broken ext2 with my interface, right? And that becomes a problem. So we've got to be careful about interface, and that's you know that's kind of my soapbox for today. You know, be very intentional about interface. Think about it, and if you don't intend this kind of behavior, maybe pick a type, right? And like interface, it is comfortable for a lot of back-end developers, right? Like Java has interfaces, .NET has interfaces. A lot of the back-end languages have interfaces, but they don't behave in this way where you can just, this is very similar to the reason why you should use let or const over var, right? Yeah, dare for type. Totally, I dare you guys to do this, right? If I do var, you know, we'll call it meh equals meh, right? And then later on, right, I do var meh equals 10. TypeScript complains and it says, hey, it must be a string, but it's a number. Okay, whatever, we'll get around this, right? Boom. And so I've redeclared meh, right? And this is because of hoisting. But you know, you can't do let, you know, meh2 equal, and then down here I can't do the same thing, right? Because you know we can't redeclare block scoped variables. There are other issues here, right? Like because of hoisting, meh could be hoisted to the global scope if it was inside of a function or whatever, right? whereas Math 2 will never be hoisted to the global scope. So there's some other issues, right? And that's kind of the way I look at interface. Interface is kind of hoisting, but it's doing more than that. It's allowing me to extend something, right? It's adding properties to something that I'm hoisting. And I'm always very, very careful about hoisting stuff. So my thoughts on Vue.js. I don't know a lot about Vue.js. It has been a few years since I worked on Vue.js, and it was Vue 4 like the big change that they made? Hoisty is a good description of interface. Yeah, actually, I like that description of Hoisty. But the last time I worked with Vue was before the big change. I think Vue 4 was the big change, where they changed a lot of the way Vue works, and Vue now has like computed and stuff in it too. I think it's a good framework. Lords, this is my new account before you accidentally ban me. Can I be a VIP in your chat? I want to feel important. Fine, Lords. Just because you asked nicely. Let's see. Mod, I want to be a developer. Okay. You now have your title back, Aurelors. You made a killer account. Message me on X and I'll go follow you. But yeah, I'll do it. Anyway, so now I know that you're Aurelors. I know you're trolling me, man, and but I will finish my thoughts on Vue. I think Vue is a good framework. I think React is a good framework. I think Angular is a good framework. I think Quick is a good framework. When picking a framework, you need to look at what your developers know. You need to know, look at what you know and things like that, and then pick the framework that's good for you, right? Vue has strengths over Angular and React and Quick, right? Angular has strengths over the others. React has strengths over the others, and Quick has strengths over the others, right? And those are the big ones. You get into like the web component frameworks too, and they definitely have big strengths, right? They also, all of those all have downsides, and so it's like anything else in software engineering, right? Pick what you know, right? Like all the frameworks are basically tools that allow you to do the same thing. And this point was really driven home to me by a talk that Minko gave earlier this year, where he's like, as I dig into Wiz and Angular, as we're bringing Wiz into Angular, I realize more and more that the frameworks are pretty much the same. And I think he even gave it like a trolley name, or maybe he didn't give it a trolley name, but the article I read, and the title was Angular and React are the same thing, right? Look, yeah, Vue looks very easy. I'm going to commit on the stack. Oh, really? Then Vue's a good stack, man. Learn it. And like the joke about Vue way back in the day was Vue was for the developers who wanted to write Angular JS, but didn't want to move to Angular, right? That was kind of the joke back in the day. But it was a good mindset. Vue was definitely designed to be simple. And it was definitely designed to be a full framework versus React, right? It's a library. And so its simplicity and the fact that it's not tied to like RxJS is a huge selling point for a lot of people. And it's a big benefit, right? The learning curve for Vue is often less than that of Angular or React. And that's a huge benefit, especially if you want to bring people up to speed quickly. So I'm not going to knock Vue, right? Like, I think Vue is a very viable framework, and it has an amazing community behind it. Um, and some brilliant minds are working on Vue. So yeah, definitely do it. Um, Pick what you know. There's only one thing I know how to do well. I'm very good at complaining. I'm very good at that too. I want to be a developer. React looks easy, but honestly, it's goddamn hard in terms of complexity. It's not easy as it seems. Vue looks fun. V4 sounds cool too, and that's what I've heard. V4 is very cool. Vue, like the stuff I did in Vue was easy to learn. I enjoyed Vue a lot. Um, and React, like when you're doing Hello World, React is super simple, right? Um, your your JSX and stuff like that, it's super simple, right? But once you get out of just basic stuff, right, and start dealing with the fact that it's a library, um, one of the big downsides to React is if I learn React at my current job and then I go to another job and say, hey, I know React, well, I know a lot of the basics of React, but I don't know the libraries and the stack and the style and the stuff that you're using. So it's very hard for me to go from job A to job B in some cases, right? That's a big downside to React is that because it's a library and because it's so extensible, people do it their own way, right? Whereas Vue and Angular are opinionated in their frameworks, right? Um, so yeah, I see your point there. Um, the ecosystem is huge. Yeah, the React ecosystem is huge, and something that you're doing this week may be a bad practice next week. And I'm joking, right? Like I'm completely joking, but the React ecosystem changes much quicker than like the Vue or the Angular ecosystem because it is so big and it has so many people working on it. And that's both a benefit and a detriment, right? Um, so there's a lot of things to consider. For me, when I'm looking at places, I tend to prefer Angular, right? Because that's what I know well, and I can do well in Angular. And to me, everything looks like it needs the Angular hammer, right? To somebody who knows React, it's the other way, right? And asking somebody who knows React to do Angular um, is obviously going to cause concern on their parts, whereas asking somebody to do Angular, to do React who knows Angular will cause the same concerns probably. And it's probably the same for other frameworks, right? Um, so you just, pick what you know. And if you don't know a framework, then pick one that interests you and is going to keep you interested. Like most of the frameworks are going to teach you the basics about components. They're going to teach you about services. They're going to teach you about, um, you know, um, data and managing data and flows and updates and stuff like that, and HTTP stuff and things like. So you're going to learn the basic language of front end development, and that's going to help you when you move into other frameworks if you decide to do so, right? You're very interested in not starving. Exactly. Yep. The Angular hammer is what we call our best guy. Exactly. I get concerned if a meta framework will survive. Yeah. And that's one of the I heard PHP is good for that. PHP has made a lot of developers a lot of money. I'm changing my thoughts on PHP, but I haven't used PHP since I think like 5.3 was the last time I used PHP, and PHP was a mess back then. So my thoughts on PHP are very colored by very, very, very old knowledge, right? I still don't have a Lambo. Maybe it's a bug in the code. I so who was it that like a lot of those PHP devs that are out there showing off, oh, I've got my Lambo or whatever. A lot of them just rented it or took a picture in front of somebody else's or something like that. It's hilarious. Um, Yeah, Laravel's always been a modern language, and it's kind of a meta framework on top of PHP, right? Um, but a very good framework, very good thing to learn, and it's going to teach you good practices. And that's what I care about most with most languages. Um, yeah, so like my first like when I was first learning the web, I was doing LAMP stacks. And if you guys don't know what LAMP stacks are, that's Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP, right? That was the stack. And PHP was doing front and back end stuff. Like you embedded PHP code and tags, and it led to some very messy stuff. I think PHP's gotten better since then. But yeah, PHP was my first web language. And then I got into Perl, and that messed up my brain. And then, you know, then we stopped trying to do like front end and back end and pre-processing and stuff, which was amazing for the web. The pre-processing days led to some horrible stuff, right? And now we don't do that, right? Now we serve static sites off of CDNs, which lowers our server load, and most of the stuff is figured out on the client side, which also lowers your compute costs and things like that, and allows your site to distribute and grow better. Very high quality TS on the screen. Maybe I did well to it. Oh, this is explaining why I prefer types over interface. This is definitely, you've got to be careful of this kind of code. But anyway, let's see if I fixed my undo. And if I did, I think I'm going to call it. So solve one cell, undo. Ah, mm-hmm. Let's reset this, filter this, solve one cell, solve one cell. Right. So we set that to 6, and so 6 and 3. If I call undo here, we should have undone this 3. All right, we're gonna have to dig deeper into the undo. What is this browser? So this browser is the Zen browser. And it's a browser I learned about from a couple of YouTubers that I think Theo was the first one to mention it. But I really like it. It's a Firefox-based browser, but it gives a whole bunch of nice things, right? Like tabs are collapsible. I could also move these tabs over to the right-hand side, but I tend to prefer them on this side. It also includes the ability to set up profiles. So I've got a streaming profile set up for this. And your profiles allow you to have different extensions and different histories and all sorts of things like that. I haven't set anything else, so I'm still on a default. I set up this streaming profile to test things out. There were a couple of things I wanted to see, and I'm waiting for some changes that they're saying are coming before I really double down on it. But as a streamer, I learned after about a year and a half that you can expose some stuff in your menu bar that might, dox yourself or dox others or things like that. So my day-to-day browser, I want to keep separate from my streaming browser. For a while, I was using Arc, and it's not even down here anymore. Arc was abandoned recently. But it had some issues that I really got frustrated with. I've looked at a couple other browsers, but Zen has become my primary browser on my phone and on a tablet that I have. Amazing browsers. I really enjoy it. It probably has some of the issues that Firefox has, but I've also got Chrome on my computer, and so we can fire that up if we need it. Yeah, I'm using the Zen browser, and you know what? Let's go. So the funny thing about the Zen browser is for a long time, Comcast was blocking this site. It looks like they aren't anymore. I was worried I was going to have to turn on my VPN tunnel to access it. But developer edition of Firefox is pretty cool. The interesting thing is Firefox is rapidly becoming my favorite browser because of changes that Chrome made to the way they handle ads. And like if you open Chrome on your phone and scroll a site, like I don't know how anybody browses the internet anymore without ads turned off, because man, just things flying in the way and things intentionally positioned so you click on them when you're trying to scroll, and things like it's a mess, and it just makes me mad. And it's not like, it's not like some shady sites. This is like New York Times and stuff doing shady, crappy stuff as you're browsing their site, right? It's not like some, I don't know, like BuzzFeed that's clickbait just to direct you to ad sites, right? So Zen browsers make things so much nicer. Like you can see up here that this is the Zoom page that allows me to set up like zoom levels, but like you can use uBlock origin, and with that I can actually block elements. So like if an ad makes it through, I can go in and I can say, hey, let's block an element. I really like this feature because I can go in and I can say, you know what, let's block this span. It's going to show me what it is, right? I could move up higher. Oh, they're using Astro here, right? And so I can keep moving down to where I find what I want. And I'm like, is this right? And if I hit preview, I can see what's going to happen with that removed. If I hit preview again, everything comes back. But it's just a really nice way to be able to clean up your browsing experience. And this may or may not be able to turn off those stupid things that they pop over websites to say, hey, you need to register, blah, blah, blah. Right click, remove the stupid thing, and keep working with their site, right? Like, but you didn't hear that from me. It's a big oof. Firefox mobile for the win. Yeah. And Zen has been a really good browser. Highly recommend it. It comes with a lot of dark mode stuff built into it, but I'm also using Dark Reader on top of it. And that's a funny display bug, but whatever. So like, that's hilarious. There's something going on with this site. That every time I pop this open, it's probably way off the bottom of my page now. But I've got that. And then I've got some other pop-up blockers and some privacy stuff, which is really nice because this will go in and it will disable, cookies and tracking pixels and things like that. And it'll tell you, oh, Cloudflare is trying to, throw a cookie on me, or things like that, right? So I'm a big proponent of internet privacy. I wish we had the controls that the EU has in the US, but we don't. So, whatever. But yeah, great browser. Anyway, I think I should end here. Tomorrow we'll figure out what's going on with the undo and redo. The nice thing about moving to xState is the undo and redo becomes super simple. But we need the signal store interface to xState to really make xState reactive and Angular. At least that's the way it was last time I looked. So that's why we're getting all of this fixed. And then we can move a whole bunch of this code over to xState and use state machines to control what happens. And that's a big piece of like just web architecture is getting into the thought of state machines and things like that, where, you know, my page is in a certain state, only these actions are available to me, instead of, you know, oh, let's check this input, let's check this input, let's check this input, and then allow the action, right? There's two different ways to look at it. And the state machine one winds up being easier to reason about. It's probably, so the state machine is more difficult to set up, but it's easier to maintain and reason about. Whereas the, you know, the typical if statements and switch statements, way easier to set up, right? Everybody knows how to do it, but you wind up with all sorts of maintenance hell if you're not careful about it. So, you know, there's your trade-offs of state machines. I tend to prefer my code to be maintainable long-term. And so I'm willing to pay a little bit extra up front to have a better long-term relationship with my code. But yeah, you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll be back tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Message me on Twitter. I want to be a developer, and I'll make sure that I'm caught up on all your socials and stuff. Other than that, you guys, you know, if you're not here tomorrow, have a great new year. We'll see you next year. And thank you guys for being here.